Give your little one the gift of reading with a copy of Tai the Dreamer, a delightful story of a lovable, brilliant daddy's girl and her cuddly, adorable cat. Tai the Dreamer teaches kids to achieve ambitious dreams, supported by loving fathers and strong communities. Available online at itascabooks.com. That's ITASCA books.com. Tai the Dreamer is a perfect gift. Dream big with Tai the Dreamer.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Kyle McDonald. Kyle is the president at Sports Entertainment Travel, or SET. Greetings, Kyle. Thanks for joining us.
Ty, thanks for having me. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, sir. Now, Kyle, I'm going to try to give what I understand that SET does, and I want you to correct me after I give my little butchered understanding, right?
Sounds good.
So what I understand about SET is you work with your clients, a lot of them being schools, specifically Division I institutions, on providing entertainment, travel management for fans, for alumni to go to events, whether it be competitions or other type events that are probably school related. How did I do? And is that exactly what SET does?
That's not bad. That's not bad, especially for the first shot. But yeah, you're spot on for the few key areas are we focus solely on the fan, donor, and alumni travel space, and we're looking at putting packages together for those fans, and we solely focus in that collegiate marketplace. But the whole goal is for us to kind of have that turnkey travel experience for these fans and donors going to games of their supporting institutions, but also premier events throughout the world as well.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Those are who are familiar with really Division I and most of FBS understand Anthony Travel, right? And I imagine that's a competitor-ish kind of a competitor. What I know is they provide the travel. They provide a lot of the travel for a lot of the schools, but that's specifically to competitions, right? In terms of getting teams and athletic departments to competition. This is different than that because you're talking about experiences that may not be the teams, right?
Yeah, exactly. We are friendly competitors in the space.
Okay.
They focused, the start of Anthony was really focused on the team travel and the travel solution for athletic departments. We like to think that we have that creative niche where we're focusing truly on the donor and the fan and trying to put those experiences together to take fans to kind of sporting events or other premier events around the country.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Now, company started in 2014. What I understand, you started with a business partner. And recently, I think last year, you became the president of the company. So you start the company, and then your title then was business development. Tell me about that. And tell me why, as one of the founders, you took on that role. And what was your partner doing at that time?
Yeah, so started in 2014 with Christine Dodds Bruce. Her and her family had been in the kind of bowl travel and the fan travel space. Her dad in the 60s, her, on the 80s forward. So I took on the role of kind of VP of business development because really took a liking to the relationship piece of the business and meeting so many great people in college athletics, from, development shops to deputy ADs to athletic directors. With the sole goal in mind of truly putting that fan and donor first in our eyes, and being able to travel those fans with the customer service needed, but also creating experiences to further their mission and values in the athletic departments, whether it's return on investment or developing different levels of giving or increasing those givings and helping out giving societies, et cetera. So it's been a fun ride for sure.
So what was she doing? Was she like 50,000 foot strategy type things and you were like relationship guy? What was she doing at the time?
Yeah, she was doing a little building relationship and building the infrastructure when we first got started. But I'll be the first to tell you, Ty, that we're a small company, right?
Yeah, so you guys were doing everything, right?
We were doing a little bit of everything. If you don't think I was printing itineraries off printers and shipping them in the mails to make sure we got it done. There was always a little bit of do a little bit of everything. And it still is to this day, even though now we're up to 10 to 15 different staff members. We still all kind of pitch in and kind of all hands on deck during those peak times as well.
Right, which is excellent. Now, both of you were at Premier Global Sport and Prime Sport. Tell me a little bit about those companies, or was that one company, or tell me about that.
Yeah, that's right. It's like we keep confusing ourselves with all these different companies. But
Hmm.
Premier was purchased by Prime Sport, and that's kind of when Christy and I really we had a love for the whole full travel package, from
Hmm.
hotels to planes to buses to hospitality events. At Prime Sport, they were really focused on hospitality and tickets at the time, and that's where it made a good opening for Christy and I to really start sports and entertainment travel. May 1st of 2014,
Hmm.
we actually just hit our 10 year. It's amazing how quick the time flies when you're working and having a little fun as well.
Right, congratulations. So you were both working there. Sounds like her family had a history in traveling for bowls and those types of things. You think about business, and you want to be an entrepreneur, it's always better, or at least this is what I was taught to get my MBA, right? It's always better to start with the problem that people already have and then provide a solution to the problem that people already have, as opposed to starting with a great idea. The problem with starting with a great idea, that may not be solving anybody's problems, right? So if you identify the problem as providing experiences for fans, students, and donors, and then you have this idea, I imagine, leading up to May 1st, 2014. Tell me about the things you did to immediately start. Like, did you go to approach one of the relationships you had and said, hey, we're doing this thing and I wonder if you'd be interested? Like, tell me about that whole aspect of starting out and getting the first client, really.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think first it started with a philosophy of focusing in the collegiate market, right? So we knew that's where we wanted to make a stronghold, and in the area we wanted to sit, focus on those unique experiences for the partners, and experiences that drive that engagement and generates revenue for our partners. But really, at the end of the day, experience of a lifetime for the fan itself that purchases the products. But to get things rolling, it was quick, right? We had to go back out to those partners, to those trusted clients that we worked with through the Premier and Prime Sport days, and tell them the new story. Tell them how we brought the best of kind of both worlds, kind of come with us on this journey for set. So I remember a few things, whether it was Christy and I in an office together in Champaign, Illinois, with her putting up her pad of paper, telling her that telling me that she just got off the phone and we just got the Seminole boosters at Florida State,
Okay.
with Andy Miller there in 2014 to start doing their bowl trips, or if it was going back to the Ohio State Alumni Association, Kansas State, that whole family at Kansas State, whether it was Chad Weiberg there, and Amy Button-Renz in the Alumni Association. So those were a few of the key partners. But the fun stories were really just getting out on the road in 14. It was May through August of traveling the whole country, really going, because we really thought it was best to be in person to tell that story versus just shooting emails and calling people, to explain why we did this and what the future was and kind of what our philosophy would continue to be. So yeah, a lot of nights on the road. A lot of we ran out of gas in Manhattan, Kansas. Had to get that was probably on me, not recognizing in the middle of Kansas we were low on gas, but really it was fun. At the end of the day, what we do is fun, and we get to play in a really cool space. So
Yeah,
lucky and fortunate.
it is. It's interesting. Congratulations again on 10 years. What's interesting is right. You had the relationships already, right? So then, did you two identify the problem, or did somebody say, "Hey, it would be great if this existed"? Tell me about that aspect of the business.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say we a little bit of both, but we
Okay.
definitely identified the problem, and it was more so just focusing in the collegiate space with our college partners 24/7
Right.
and really developing the fan travel model. I think sometimes, everyone's going to go to a national championship and need a big bowl package. Everyone's, a team that makes the Final Four is going to look for a package, but we really wanted to do more than that. By creating kind of a philosophy to really start a fan travel community and program. That way it was a consistent piece. But yeah, I think the problem was there wasn't enough energy and focus to it, and for right or wrong, there was different business models for the other companies as well. But, our philosophy and model really wanted to be focusing on that fan travel piece 24/7, throughout the whole year. But yeah, I think we did, to answer the second part of your question, we did see some schools kind of ask Christy and I, are you guys ready to maybe get back to your niche of where you focused when we started Premier Global Sports, in that transition to Prime Sport? I think some of the clients were smart enough to see some of the writing on the wall as well. So
your background, you started off, you did some marketing coming up. And I know you spent some time at the St. Louis Sports Commission. And if you're anything like the rest of us, right, unless you had a major inflection point in your career, we are informed by the experiences that we've had throughout our career. So I wonder how the time at the St. Louis Sports Commission helped, because that had to do with, providing experiences to various entities that were coming into town. Tell me about that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that really kick-started my career when I look back on that. Chris Roseman was a VP there and someone I reported to and really respect. And, you were able to take a look at an event that came to St. Louis and all the different pieces that kind of went into, putting on an event for the city. Whether it was a little bit of my marketing background, a little bit of, I worked in minor league baseball for a brief stint before I got to St. Louis, but it was eye-opening to see the logistics that went into moving the teams around, the volunteers that you had at all the different hotels, to hotel blocks for all the teams. A lot of what the Sports Commission obviously does is works with, the wrestling championships, the Final Fours that came to town. So we worked with the NCAA. We worked with organizations putting on those events to help assist. But, a lot of marketing and sales and corporate sponsorships to, everyone in the city getting behind the event to really make it successful. So it was really eye-opening for me before I got in the travel piece, the travel package side, to learn really from the bottom of an event, from building the stages to where the mats go to, in the locker rooms to, where the water breaks are for the officials, all the event specific items I was able to learn during my time there, and was able to kind of take that into the travel space that I really took me some time to learn the travel space and all the items that went into putting travel packages together. But at the end of the day, we were always bringing people to an event. So you better know the logistics around the event to make sure people have the best time possible. So
yeah, there's a lot of detail. I've always said that people who work in facilities, events, and operations all have to be very detailed because of, especially events, right? If you try to walk yourself from the experience of the fan all the way back to what needs to be done so they have an excellent experience, everything counts. Like you said, the match that go down, the space between the aisles, everything is of the utmost importance. I wonder, 2014, what was one of the first inflection points that you saw happened for the company where you realized we're on to something good here, and this what just happened is great?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, Christy and I look back on this, and I still look back on it to this day to, when companies start to be able to be profitable and get off on a right note is few and far between sometimes. It takes some years to build. We were lucky enough, actually, when we kicked off in 2014, we were able to go out in the summer, and a lot of this is, back to what you said, relationships, partnerships, people that trust you're going to get the job done for their fans and donors. But in 2014, the kickoff to the new college football playoff, remember it was 4 teams, and it was Florida State, Oregon, Ohio State. Well, we had 3 of the 4. We had those 3 schools that were able to make it, which obviously puts a lot of demand on travel packages, which made our first first year, very, very successful. A lot of work, a lot of moving by the seat of our pants a little bit, but having 3 of the first 4, we look back on it, we probably should have promoted that more, but we were so busy kind of getting everything set, right? Going to work, right? You know, finding more people to staff, to, getting through the bowl season. And anyways, that was the first, rather quickly. Not only did we have those great relationships in multiple universities that kind of moved over and trusted us with our services, and can't thank them enough, right? That's why we were able to really kick set off in a good way. But once we got through that first bowl season, we knew we were on for something, onto a great philosophy, a great way to do things. And then we had to work on building our team, right? Building and focusing on our team to make sure that, customer service was always something that we took. That was our number one item we wanted to be really good at. Just be the best at providing that service for the fan. So, it was early. It was quick.
Right off the bat, right? That's excellent.
So, knock on wood still today that happened. It allowed us to kind of keep going. As even though you have a lot of Power 5 schools, obviously there's a competitor. There's different bowl games, different times. They've got to be in good schools at good times, maybe, or a good location to really provide the demand. So a volatile industry per se, which speaks to maybe why some of those other companies had their hands in other items. But we were lucky right off the bat to get things rolling.
Right. I'll ask one more question about when you started the business. Then we can move forward. Were you lucky enough to have some type of funding, or were you like grassroots? Like that summer, you're like, all right, you got enough of your salary saved. I have enough of my salary saved. Let's hit the road and see if we can start this. Tell me about that part of the business, right?
Yeah.
When you first started.
It was a little bit of grassroots. I was lucky enough to, attach to Christy Bruce, who you had a little bit of funding, but we were taking out a loan. We were taking out a small business loan and grassroots to a certain extent, but we kind of wanted to bet on ourselves, right? I tell people all the time, at some point it's better to bet on yourself if you truly feel passionate enough. And, I hope, from this podcast, you'll gather that from my side. But that was one thing we both had. We had the passion of doing the right thing for our schools and ultimately knowing we were doing the right thing for the fans, right? Trying to go see these events. But it was a little grassroots, man. It was a loan, taking out a small business loan. And, we had a little bit of funding, but, we were still way in that not only we got some schools, but we got some schools and, they played well, right? The 18-year-old caught the right football pass to, win one game and, go to a national championship versus not. So it is a volatile business, but it's a fun one. I think that's why we're all kind of in the space, right? So
I think that's excellent. Now, where did you see SET evolve? Right. I mean, in business, you can keep doing the same thing if it's bringing you money and be happy. Like we're doing it, we're good. But I imagine there was some evolution in the company over the years.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mentioned earlier, just obviously bowl season and Final Four, it's a quick turnaround and schools need companies like ours to put together services, right, that are turnkey for their fans because they're dealing with the teams and a bunch of other logistics. But I think when you look at the space year round, we really had to, kind of strategize around, football weekends to baseball trips to volleyball trips, what other, to preseason basketball trips, those were always trips we did on a limited, kind of more limited, but trips that definitely made sense. So we looked at, kind of put a strategy around those, but really where I've seen the industry change from those big fan travel events, obviously a little easier for fans to do stuff themselves, right?
Yeah.
Easy to get online and book a lot of things, get in an Uber and make it happen. So we really had to focus on what were the secret ingredients, what were items we could put in these packages that people can't buy, right? Whether it's, is it a football coach coming to welcome them at a hotel lobby, right? Is it a different athlete or an on-field experience or tours to different areas or food tours of the city, you name it, we've probably done it in some of these trips. But I think I mentioned earlier, one of the items we've really shifted our focus in recently is really going into these development shops that have these giving societies, have these different giving levels, Well, they're always looking for experiences for their donors, right? To not only continue to engage them, but maybe another gift coming down the way, or maybe even NIL comes into this where they have to fundraise for that. So looking at doing those kind of high-end donor customized trips, whether it's a master's house or, taking Tennessee Athletics Shareholder Society to Oklahoma, but putting it together with a charter flight and bartenders on buses and Oklahoma City experience. Kind of going over and above to really curate that experience has been something that we continue to strive for. That's where I've kind of seen it change kind of over the years where, it's pretty easy to get the bowls and the Final Fours when your schools make it, right? But it's what can we do year round, to continue, building revenue, but building a healthy company and continuing to offer our partners other solutions throughout the year.
Yeah, what's interesting is, the problem the schools have is continual engagement, right? And the solution you're providing is, well, here are possible ways that you can continually engage and make it interesting and fun for those donors. I wonder, this is a complex question that's coming into my mind as I'm asking it, right? I wonder, do the ideas come from the schools? Do you bring the ideas? And the layer on that question is, do you just know about a bunch of things that are happening in cities around the country? So then when you go to a school, you say, well, this happens in Oklahoma City. You can do this, this, and this. Or do they say, do they come at you with ideas about what they want to do? Tell me about just that part of the process of designing events.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very interesting question. We like to, we think of ourselves as experts, right? We always want to be ahead of the game. That's one thing I've always taught our team, how can we stay ahead, right? So I want to have a proposal to our schools before they even think about a game in 2025, right? Yeah. I know that Texas A&M is playing Notre Dame this year in College Station. Well, hey, next year I know they go to South Bend. Can we curate a Chicago train ride down to South Bend experience? So we always try to stay ahead of the game. That's the first part of the question. So we'd ideally like to share the stuff to the schools. Are some schools smart? Of course. There's a lot of bright people out there, and they're forming their schedule a lot of times, right? So they might pick our brain, or they might come at us and say, hey, in 2 to 3 years, we're looking at a home and home here, right? I think from the adding the pieces and the ingredients to our experiences and travel packages, I think it's kind of twofold. A lot of historical information in our databases from the last 10 years, and then even 10 to 15 to 20 years prior to that too. But also just making sure that we're doing our job in all these major cities, right? We visit these cities year round with our staff, and we might spend a day before or after going around to, where are the hot items to take, hot places to take people, whether it's F&B, hotels, landmarks, what are the other areas in all these major cities that our fans on a trip would like to see? So doing our education, kind of staying in front of the game and just being proactive and providing proposals and suggestions to our clients. But they definitely come at us as well, knowing that we're a solution piece. And a lot of times it's almost, we want to get your thoughts, let's set up a call. Let's get get your thoughts around experience to the Bahamas, whether for a preseason basketball. So a lot of it's kind of talking through with partners. We really, truly, look at it as a partnership, right? So I think to answer your question, I think it comes from both sides.
Are those the latest evolution you mentioned was the Giving Society? Are there layers? Like somebody gives this much, here's a potential experience. Somebody gives this much, here's that platinum level experience. Like, do schools hire you to do different layers of experiences or travel within the same type umbrella organization?
See, you're going to be an expert by the time we're done, aren't we?
Hey, look, I'm just trying to educate the audience, right? Myself too, right?
Right. Good question. I think there's definitely different package types, right? Okay. Different levels. So a lot of schools will focus on offering the same package of, different package types to the same audience. They like to not get too varied or too far away from that, but we definitely have schools, especially where large demand groups happen. We had, give me an example, Michigan going to the Rose Bowl to play Alabama in the semifinal this year, we might have had 5 to 6 different properties, 3 to 4 chartered flights. Do you want to stay in Santa Monica? Do you want to stay downtown LA? Do you want to stay in Pasadena? Do you want to stay in Beverly Hills? So we kind of provide that in our packages per se versus them offering it to different levels. But to your point, in these giving societies or even these development shops where there's 4 to 5 different levels of giving, they might look at, the top 2 get an extra piece, right? Coach might come to a cocktail reception on the opening night for those top 2, top 2 levels. Maybe the other 2 don't even get that reception, that opening night. So again, their whole goal is to cater to the people that support, the athletic department, support their student athletes, support their mission. So we're just here to help on that front. But definitely different levels on our end. But also I think their heads kind of right where you're at now too. They're really starting to, how can we really make it creative?
Yeah, because these schools are dealing with this, we got to get people to give money because we got to support the institution, scholarships, general fund. But then we have this new NIL situation happen, which there's just so many different things. So they got to provide to, keep people engaged and provide the experiences that they have. I wonder, when creating a business, me being an entrepreneur myself, you deal with the ebbs and flow, the ups and downs. There's, I heard somebody say one time, you never want to be perfect or completely on top because the only way to go from being on top is down, right? So there's ebbs and flows, right? When you're down, you're learning, and when you're up, you're executing. So it's just learning and execution. So I say that to say, tell me about a learning incident or a learning situation where it was like, oh, this probably needs to be operated a little better, or when we evaluated it, the details here were off a little bit. Tell me about something like that in terms of the business that you can share, right?
Yeah, we definitely had that pandemic that came through, right? And maybe that's a kind of an easy answer to your question, but being able to make it through was what we really wanted to, do to protect our team and protect our brand and our company. And so we used the word pivot 1,000 times during those 2 years. But, pivoted to making sure we were still there for our partners, even though, our service there was no service, right? There was 14 months of no business for us, no activating of fan travel packages. So what we learned through that, though, was, relationships are really key, but also we had, safety protocols, strategy around keeping people safe, even more so than prior, right? So, on the other side of the pandemic, getting back into it, there was a lot of learning after a big low point. There was a lot of learning for our team on just safety, guidelines and protections, not only for the travelers, but our clients and ourselves as well. So that, there's also definitely a lot of learning experiences when we rely on vendors in our space so much, from charter flights to hotels to motor coach companies. So at the end of the day, it really, picking the vendors you really need to be smart about, right? Because those vendors are selected by Set, and therefore it's really Set's fault if something goes wrong in those pieces of the puzzle from us.
That's how the clients look at it.
That's exactly how they do, right? They've got that layer of us there. So we got to make sure we're doing our best due diligence on just educating our staff, but also picking the right vendors, right? And I think even before the pandemic, and each year we have to pay attention to these vendors, and does that hotel maintain its bedrooms? Is that room up to code? Are these charter flights providing the right service that we're selling? Right. So we've had some learning experiences on charter vendors, on who we need to use and who we need to maybe stay away from. Same thing with hotels and bus companies, right? So we had those learning experiences seem to be pretty consistent and constant, where we have to really pay attention to kind of all those items that we're putting together and selling, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'll ask a couple questions here and then we'll wrap. The first question is about the evaluation process. I imagine that internally you evaluate wins and learning experiences, to not say losses, right? All the wins, evaluate what we did well, but then also the evaluation on the client side, how they evaluate you. Tell me about your evaluation processes internally and externally.
Yeah, I think evaluating, every trip we do, whether it's, I'll start pre-trip. We have kind of pre-trip calls with our staff, with our client on kind of the day-to-day activity throughout the trip, right? And then after the trip, internally, we'll have a call and debrief on each trip. So we'll have that debrief call with our vendors, with our staff on site, and then we'll have a call with our client to get their feedback on every piece of the tour. With that, we formulate notes and keep it in a database, right? Because we're taking a lot of schools the same places, right? So it's nice to know what worked, what didn't work, how can we get better. If we're not asking the client or our guest how we can do better, right? We're not doing our job, right? You talk ebbs and flows. If we're in a low spot, if we're not asking the right questions, we're not going to get back up to the high spot, right? So, and then there's, guest communication for us is key. Every bowl season, every Final Four, each year, our team does this now going into our 10th year. We've realized the communication to the guest is key. So after these packages, events, we'll send out those like surveys to every guest, try to get feedback. I think one thing I learned at an early age in this business, it's you always want to be honest for your clients to trust you, but you want to be forthright. You want to tell them really what's going on. You don't want to hide behind it. Just like if you get an issue where a charter's delayed or some rooms aren't ready, you better be telling the guests and you better be telling your clients right away, and make sure you're adamant and strong and communicating that to them, because that's the only way you can be better, right? You don't want to try to hide behind the curtain. So, again, I think communication key in the evaluation process for us, but that's kind of how we do after every single event, pre-post, and then getting that guest feedback and kind of keeping it all in one central location to just become better in each area we go to.
All right, which I think is excellent. And finally, you were moved into the president position in 2023, but of course you said you've been involved the whole time. But there's an aspect of when you get into this role of leading an organization, being in the weeds can keep you from being strategic, right? But you got to understand what's going on at the top and in the weeds and at 50,000 feet. I wonder for you, without giving away any company secrets, right? Strategically, you mentioned getting into these given societies. Where do you see A, your specific company going, and then B, that part of the college athletics adjacent industry going to? I imagine they're probably the same place, right?
Yeah, I hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah, good question. And, honestly, you bring up the weeds and then being strategic, that's something I'm continuing to work on. I have been since 2023, because it's, in a small company, it's hard to stay out of some of the weeds that you love, right? But you've got to be strategic, and you got to be a leader of the team, right? So I want to put myself in their shoes and keep us moving forward. Where I see the company going, I still, the reason we're successful is customer service and focusing in this collegiate space. So I don't see us leaving
veering
that
too far, right?
No, we're definitely not going to veer too far from providing the best experiences in the collegiate space for fans, donors, and alumni. We have started, right after the pandemic, we did start an international team bonding travel division, to where we want to get into helping, these athletic departments that are taking their schools, whether it's, golf, volleyball, men's and women's basketball, football, etc. How can we help assist on, creating a bonding experience, educational experience, kind of a lifetime experience for these college students? And, of course, some donors like to come along and fund some of that as well. So how do we get in that space as a division, but still, really, like I mentioned, kind of focusing on those fan and donor experiences, and really, for us, obviously the large volume events bring in more revenue, but we really enjoy these kind of high end, smaller, intimate experiences we're starting to create with the schools across the country. So, That's where I see our company going. Hopefully the athletic market still, with all the other items that are going on, whether it's NIL or transfer or
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah, whatever it is, right? It's one of those things. I'm probably glad I don't sit in their shoes trying to figure out and find the best solution. But I will say, obviously, I don't think the sky's falling. College athletics will be around. There's too much good, and you can see, you've been to live events, right?
Yeah.
You go to a live sporting event, and people want to be at those things. So I'm hopeful for the industry, and I think we'll all find ourselves in a good spot in the future as we navigate through this. I just keep telling all of our clients, just make sure your fans and donors still want to go, to sporting events and sit in the seat because we're here to help.
Yeah, which is excellent. Well, Kyle, I think this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Tai, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And good questions. You're starting to become an expert now. I like it.
I appreciate it. That was Kyle McDonald. He is the president of Sports Entertainment Travel, where they provide exceptional sport and event experiences globally to individuals and groups. And of course, I am Tai Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.